Let's take a look at what it is to work with the columns for the DataTables builder. So in the tool, we're looking at this tab, the columns tab that's in orange. And what we're really trying to do here is the final step before you display a DataTables report. We need to tell it from the data that we just got, what do we want to actually show the user? So let's take a look at how the data and the columns relate. The first thing you need to know is that they are very intricate. They need to work together. So if your data structure changes, your columns also need to change along with that. So the columns must map to the data. In the example that we had before with the context information, we had 40 records presented to us. And here's the JSON format example of some of the information that's coming through. We had an ID field, active, address, city, down to zip, all that information. So this is the data that came through and repeated. But what the columns are doing now is actually mapping all of these fields here to something that you can display on your report. So in the case of each one of these columns has these attributes, and one of them is called data, and that is the mapping tool. So in this case, the data is linked to the field over here called the JSON element called ID. And down here, this one, city, is related to this, and so on and so forth. You can see active address. So we need to basically let the system know, how do I map the columns to the data? Okay, let's look at the column structure for the tool, the DataTables builder. And what I want to point out is that in the tool, I've built it so that for every data element in the JSON that we get, we are actually setting 5 attributes on it. The data has to map to what it is. The title is actually what is the header display. So think about what you actually have as your column name. Orderable tells you as it's true or false, or a Boolean saying, is this field going to be sortable? Can I let my user change the sort order on this? And by default, I'm saying true for this when you first create a column. Is it searchable? Again, by default, I'm saying yes. And what that means is up in the corner, when you actually type something, is that something you want the user to be searching on? An example of something you wouldn't want to search on might be actually the ID field, a primary key field. There's no meaningful value to that to the user, so you might toggle that off. And then, of course, visible is true or false. By default, it's always on. So what you actually got in your JSON package is what you're going to show. But I give you the ability to toggle this off or turn it off so that the user cannot see the ID field or property of the primary key. Okay, so just to kind of get an understanding, the column builder that I have in this tool is using the JSON format and with key value pairs. So it's obviously using JSON structure, and that goes in alphabetically. So even though I'm saying, hey, we need to set these things, when you look at the way that the DataTables builder uses columns, it's just restructuring it into this exact alphabetical order. So you'll see data up here referring to the title, then in alphabetical order down. So at any time you can go change these, but that's how my tool is building it for you natively out of the box. All right, we're in our demo file 1.4, working with columns. Let's go back to the quick start and get into our DataTables builder. From the prior lessons, you can see that we have 3 in here, and the last one we did was 1.3, but we haven't identified our columns yet. So to stay consistent with our each file having a demo, let's go into this one and let's use our actions to update to our video, and let's do everything here, including duplicating the entire record. All right, so let's do that and update our file so that it says 1.4. And this can stay the same, and this can stay the same. All right, let's submit and close this. So now, if we look at this, we still have our data here, and they're still here in the file. And I'm just going to expand this a little bit so you can see that you can use the tool to help you out to see everything. And now the step that we're working on before we can preview it is to identify our columns. So let's look at the columns tab. Currently, when you create a new report and enter data, the columns are not automatically built for you. But if you press this button, it'll run some code on it. It'll run a script that looks at the data here and constructs the default columns for you. So let's go ahead and hit that button. All right, immediately it's presented us with what I just referred to as the column structure for the JSON columns. Here we go, we see that we have data, orderable, searchable, title, invisible. So every JSON data element from this tool is now over here in our columns represented as the default. So that's all we have to do. In a future lesson, we're going to look at changing these things to allow you to interact with them. But in the next presentation, we're going to go over and preview the data and see what to do next.